Hi guys, welcome back. So we're doing embarrassing ways people die. So this video just came out, so that's why I didn't do another one. Another from for part two. Also, I realized the one we watched last time was part two, not part one. So this one's just gonna be part 10 because I want to watch. Then I'll do the other parts, and then in case you guys don't hear, for I'll explain the first one. Okay, Macho Man Snaffle. Ah, ew. Okay, in case the sound got cut, you guys want look just act like they're the best man and they're toughest. Well, this guy was very tough, but he one day when he was sleeping, he was hurt in the leg, and then finally when he took off the covers, he realized a Brazilian spider bite bottom um bottom, I think it is. And yeah, but he didn't really care, even though even of some nasty things, and if you didn't treat it well, you could have serious effects. He didn't want to. He didn't want to go to the doctor, even though his family insisted. And then he became his hand. He began swelling. Then his legs feeling unstable. And then when he finally got to the hospital, it was too late, and he died. Let's continue. I'm gonna explain in case you didn't understand or you didn't hear. So a snowboarder that does tricks, he was going up down a mountain. Then he saw a road and thought it was just a road for people to go up, but turns out it was a road for cars. And he tried to do a trick in the jump, landed on the road, but he didn't have a helmet. And yeah, he was mad. There's a Humvee coming towards him. it didn't have time to stop, and it killed him. And he wasn't wearing a helmet, so the crash, the car almost killed him instantly. Okay, on to the next one. Holy moly. Ouch. Last year. In case you didn't hear or didn't understand, burglars do sometimes, I don't know, go up and often just something goes wrong when they're trying to steal. Falling off buildings, getting caught by a dog or something. But falling off building is a bit unlikely, but yeah. But this one cut into a hair salon. He cut a hole in the roof, and he was trying to go down, but fell. And thing was 20 foot high, 20 foot high. I don't know. And I think he might have been hoping to land on a sweet chair instead of scissors or something else. But he didn't land any of those two. He landed on the sweet hard floor, causing him to die. All right, on to the next one.
Having a blast. There are many ways a person can annoy their neighbors when living in a small apartment complex. Loud music, annoying pets, and parties are the usual problems. But for an apartment block in Tiraspol, Moldova, one problematic neighbor made a bang that was more than just noisy. On a quiet afternoon in February 2019, residents of the apartment complex were suddenly met with an almighty boom. As glass exploded out from one apartment window into the street below, the emergency services were called to investigate. When police arrived, the apartment block's gas was shut off, as it was initially assumed a gas leak had caused the explosion. But as the police began to piece the mystery together, a gas explosion was quickly ruled out in favor of something much more ridiculous. It turned out the owner of the apartment in which the explosion had occurred was somewhat of a military enthusiast. He had a large assortment of weapons in his room, including grenades, and had somehow managed to set one off while perusing his collection. The blast from the hand grenade obliterated his apartment, but miraculously left the rest of the complex largely untouched. Unsurprisingly though, the grenade-toting apartment owner himself was very much dead when the police arrived. Hand grenades. Not even once.
So this one, um, there were plenty of ways to know your neighbor. I mean, it's a bad thing. Don't try that. But this one, like loud music, annoying dogs or something, annoying pets. So, but this one one day, February 2, 2019, uh, a guy was sleeping and woke up from a giant boom. The police department went there and they started to investigate. They saw oh my god, I'm so bad at this. Something turned on fire, but turned it off. They thought that was the cause of the giant boom, but it wasn't that. But then they realized that the owner of there was actually a military guy and full of guns, grenades, and stuff in his room. The police quickly realized that he had touched a grand hand grenade that exploded somehow, causing him. Somehow, it only exploded his place and nothing else. His place, not his room, not nothing else. Not in the other rooms. But obviously, hand grenades, if they explode literally right next to you, you will obviously die. So that's exactly what happened.
Felt cute. Might delete myself. Certain people will go to great lengths nowadays for the perfect Instagram photo opportunity. After all, how are people going to know how much fun their lives are without plastering it all over social media? Sarcastic though my tone may be, this mindset is very much real for some folk. And what's more, desperation for a great pic at any cost has forcibly removed a select few from the gene pool in recent years. One such case happened to a student at Fordham University in New York back in 2019. Late one night, she and her friends had the not-so-bright idea to climb an off-limits clock tower on campus, hoping to snap a few Insta-worthy pics at the top. But whether it was the excitement of a photo op or just the darkness of the evening, during the ascent, the student made a fatal mistake. Somehow, she managed to fall out of an open alcove and over the edge, plummeting to the lower roof of the building. With serious injuries sustained from her fall, she died shortly afterwards. She did reportedly manage to snap a few pics before falling, but she never even got to share them with the world. Was it worth it? Unless those pics ever get released, we'll never know for sure. But I'm betting on a firm no. Ride of your life.
Yep. So this happened in New York last year. 5 students decided to climb a large tower to snap some pics for Instagram. But one of the students somehow fell off of the tower into the ground that obviously killed her. She did though manage to snap a few pics before dying. But the pics, obviously the phone broke when it fell. So will those pics ever be released to Instagram? Was it worth it? I'm gonna vote with no.
Some ideas are so dumb, even just hearing about them makes you feel slightly less intelligent. One such idea was brought to life in the city of Zevenaar in the Netherlands in June 2020. A young man and his friend, perhaps after watching the televised antics of Johnny Knoxville, Bam Margera and co., decided to tie a shopping cart to a car and go for a ride. Clearly pulling the short straw, one of them clambered into the cart, while the other took the much less treacherous role of driver. As the engine roared into life, the cart rider hesitantly stood up in his humble chariot and prepared to feel the wind in his hair. While he was reportedly able to engage in this unconventional style of surfing for a little while, it wasn't long before the cart began to lose stability. Before he knew it, the shopping cart tamer was buckarooed right off, traveling at a significant speed, and landed in a crumpled heap on the tarmac, dying instantly. I could never condone partaking in a joyride of this kind, but if you're dumb enough to insist, at least wear a helmet and protective gear, because as this guy learned in the split second before his annihilation, high speeds, tarmac, and human faces are not a pleasant mix.
In case you don't hear, so this guy, this happened this year, where he tried to, he tried to surf on a car. That only happens in GTA or games where you just attach a car there and somehow go there without go flying somehow. But this guy obviously tried it, obviously died, and yeah. So, he was standing up on the cart, the other one was driving. He somehow got there for a little bit before crashing down. The car hit something and the car broke and he fell face into the ground. That killed him.
Is this thing loaded?
Oh my god.
In June 2020, an incident of such outrageous stupidity occurred, it would seem more at place in a wacky cartoon than in real life. At a birthday celebration in the town of Shahpur in the Indian state of Maharashtra, a 28-year-old man decided to take a look through the party host's belongings. Finding what was quite obviously a very real revolver, and mistaking it for a toy, he jokingly pointed it at himself. Sensing no danger whatsoever and committed to the gag, he pulled the trigger. As a gunshot cut through the fun atmosphere of the party, guests poured in from other rooms and saw the aftermath. It wasn't pretty. The guests were left shocked and disturbed by the incident and were forced to confront 3 very important lessons. Firstly, if you own guns, don't leave them lying around loaded when you throw a party. Secondly, don't invite people to your party with less than 3 brain cells. And thirdly, even if you suspect a gun to be fake, never hold it up to yourself and open fire before you've double, triple, and quadruple checked with the owner. Treat every gun like it's loaded. Otherwise, at the very least, you may ruin a perfectly good party. And nobody likes a party pooper. Rapid exit.
In case you didn't understand, so at a party this year somewhere in China, I think, and I don't know, 5 guests were there, and one of the guests decided to go through the owner's bag. He got a real revolver and thought and mistaken it for a toy. He quickly held it up to his head and fired, and pow! That killed him. So yeah. Also, the owner shouldn't have bring a gun. The owner shouldn't have bring a gun or had a gun there. And he shouldn't have tried to point it to his head, even if it was a fake. He could have hurt even. And also, don't try to point a gun in your head before you check like quadruple times with the owner. Don't even touch a gun in case if it's an emergency, and unless if it's an emergency.
Every once in a while, in the process of accidentally removing themselves from the gene pool in spectacularly embarrassing ways, people actually end up saving lives. For one unlucky man from Somalia, though, saving lives was far from his intention, yet he somehow managed it anyway. The man in question boarded a commercial flight from Abdin Adi International Airport in Mogadishu, Somalia on February 2, 2016, with diabolical intentions. His plan, it seemed, had been to smuggle a laptop on board which was fitted with a bomb and detonate it mid-flight, bringing the plane crashing down. He succeeded in getting the bomb past security, and shortly after takeoff prepared for everyone on board's fiery demise. The terrorist detonated his device and it exploded according to plan. But in a shocking and admittedly kind of hilarious turn of events, he blew a hole in the side of the plane right next to him, which sucked him straight out into the open air. While a couple of other people were injured, no passengers died, and the plane turned around and landed safely back at the airport. All the while, the world's unluckiest terrorist was treated to a nice flight of his own, straight down to the ground at terminal velocity. What was left of him was later scraped off the road near Mogadishu, in about as dignified an ending as he deserved.
What happened was that in like 4 years ago, a guy tried to smuggle a laptop which was a bomb in it, and tried to blow the plane to death. He somehow got it past security, but when he was gonna detonate it, it exploded with him, putting a hole right where he was. He fell off the plane. So the plane quickly turned and landed. Somehow, none of the passengers survived, though some of them were injured, but none of them died. And yeah, but the guy was treated on a little flight of his own, straight to hell.
Hammer time!
Hammer time!
When in doubt, hit it with a hammer. That's the approach one man from the commune of Boltati in Romania seemed to take to life. At least it's the approach he took when investigating a mysterious metal object he found while exploring the fields near his home. As you can hopefully understand, a hammer is far from the perfect investigative tool for such a purpose. But unfortunately, not everyone is fortunate to have the baseline level of common sense you and I take for granted. The metal object in question was a rusty cylinder that looked something like this, which even at first glance should have begun to ring a few alarm bells in his head. But those alarm bells remained silent, and the air was soon filled with other noises instead. First, the sound of metal on metal, as he took the object back to his home workshop and gave it an investigatory whack with his hammer. Then, the sound of an explosion, because the object he'd found and proceeded to hammer was a very old, but still very much active, bombshell from a past battle.
I knew it.
Battle on Romanian soil. With all the grace and decorum of someone trying to tie their shoes with a jackhammer, the man was blown to smithereens in the most literal sense of the phrase. He wasn't a bright spark in life, but he certainly was in death. Light.
So yeah, and you know people like to hit stuff with hammers, though that I never met someone that does like that. Over, yeah. So he tried it, and he found a metal object in his backyard, which looked a lot like a bomb, an old bomb. And pretty much it's a bomb. How even though someone could have seen that and obviously knew that was a bomb, but he was dumb and did not. And yeah, so he quickly got it to a workshop and started hitting it a bit until kaboom! An explosion happened. That was a bomb. It was pretty old, but it was still pretty explosive.
Refreshment. What's your favorite food? Pizza? Pasta? Sushi? Barbecue. Feel free to share yours down in the comments below, but
Really?
whatever yours is, I'm sure you take great pleasure in eating it. And why wouldn't you? Food is great, but it's more than that. It's essential for our continued survival. Most people never forget this fact of life, but one Swiss woman chose to, well, simply ignore it when she ventured forth on an incredibly questionable spiritual journey back in 2011. After watching a documentary about an Indian guru who allegedly survived for 70 years consuming no food, living off sunlight alone, the woman decided to try her hand at the challenge. Now, you might be thinking, but what if the documentary was lying? And you'd be right to do so, because that tale was almost certainly little more than a myth, or at the very least, an exaggeration, as the whole idea goes against every shred of evidence biological science presents us with. But what does science matter when you have faith, right? Well, that's the viewpoint this woman adopted, and she decided to stop eating and drinking altogether. When that proved too tough, she began drinking water again, but continued to resist food. After a few weeks of the practice, she was found in her apartment, dead of starvation. It shouldn't need to be said, but no matter how much you believe otherwise, the human body needs food to keep living. Once your body runs out of food, it begins digesting itself. Eventually, this stops the vital organs from functioning, and death soon follows. If there's a legitimate way to get around it, the scientific world is yet to see compelling evidence of it. One thing that is certain, though, is that this Swiss woman's death was a failed attempt to make a somewhat pointless statement. But anyway, is anyone else feeling hungry all of a sudden? Big Bad Birdie.
Oh, that was creepy way.
Was a failed attempt to make a somewhat pointless statement. But anyway, is anyone else feeling hungry all of a sudden?
That's creepy. Also, if you didn't understand or hear, this woman saw something on TV of a man that survived 70 years without any food. That was obviously fake. That's impossible. You can't even survive 1 year without eating. Maybe you can, but like for 1 hour and then you die. I don't know. I'm not even gonna try that. She tried it. After a few weeks, she was very hungry but thirsty. She began drinking water again, but resisted to food and well, died. So you obviously need food to survive, or else if you don't, then the organ will just keep eating itself until nothing works and you die. Big Bad Birdie. That's creepy. I don't want to see this anymore.
Big Bad Birdie. Despite what you might believe, dinosaurs still exist.
What?
Not in the form of giant
Actually, yes.
T-Rexes, granted, though their current forms can be
A T-Rex is a chicken.
just as scary. Case in point, this bizarre creature known as a cassowary. Found across Indonesia and northeastern Australia, it's one of the largest birds on Earth, reaching up to 6 feet tall and weighing as much as 130 pounds. If you don't believe my dinosaur claim, just check out their claws. Scary, right? Well, it's those 4-inch long claws that make up the focal point of this next tale of one man's unfortunate, yet avoidable, demise. While cassowaries are certainly fascinating to look at, they're known for being incredibly territorial. This is something one Florida man should have been aware of, considering he bred them on his property near Gainesville. But for reasons unknown, one day the breeder let his guard down while walking in the enclosure housing one of his cassowaries. In a stroke of misfortune he fell, and seeing an opportunity to attack, the cassowary leapt forth with those dagger-like claws. Had the breeder been smart like this guy, he would have taken something into the enclosure to put between the bird and himself in the event of an attack. Anything to absorb some of the powerful kick's impact, and most importantly, keep those claws away from his vulnerable body would have made all the difference. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case. The bird overpowered the unlucky breeder and kicked him to death. It's certainly a tragedy and proves that around dangerous animals, letting your guard down even once can be a death sentence. But on the other hand, I would argue that killed by a lucky breeder and kicked him to death.
Wait.
It's certainly a tragedy and proves that around dangerous animals, letting your guard down even once can be a death sentence. But on the other hand, I would argue that killed by a living dinosaur is a pretty cool thing to have on your gravestone.
Wait.
Digging.
Yeah. So, some dinosaurs are alive. Some of them, Komodo or something. Komodo, the dragon of Komodo. But yeah. There's a bird that has gnarly claws and is fast that it kills, and is very protective of its territory. So yeah. So he tried that. He tried to he went near some, and when he was passing through, he fell, alarming the one that was near. He could have just took something and put in between him so he couldn't get clawed. Anything was actually fine. Anything that could keep that away, the claws away from you, would be fine. But the bird overpowered him, and he was killed. I might have been killed because I had no idea that was a thing. I had no idea that was even an animal. Alright.
An early grave. You don't need to look far on the internet to see examples of people with dangerous jobs throwing all safety measures to the wind. Like this guy, who successfully completed his digging unharmed in spite of his very unstable looking DIY support beams. Or this genius, whose choice of propping tools are one sudden movement away from crumbling like breadsticks, with a side of crushed human for dipping. Not everyone is so lucky, however, and it turns out the most dangerous type of support beam is none at all. That was precisely the construction style chosen by one man in 2018 when he decided to dig a tunnel into a sand dune at a beach in St. Augustine, Florida. He wormed his way several feet into the side of the sand dune and seemed to be having fun. Until his unsupported makeshift tunnel suddenly collapsed on him. The collapse covered him in several feet of sand, suffocating him, and the sudden shock triggered a fatal heart attack, finishing him off. And that, folks, is why even these types of support beams are better than none at all when it comes to digging yourself out of, or into, trouble. Reptile.
Again? Oh, that's gross. I don't want to see that. Again, so I'm not even watching the screen. So, wait, I want to see if it's still great. So, this guy, oh my god, I forgot. Oh, wait, what was I saying? What was the death again? Yeah, so you know what, when you dig in and there's stuff supporting the thing on top, anything would have been fine. The only thing that wouldn't have been fine was nothing at all. This was learned somewhere 2 years ago when someone was digging somewhere. On top, there was sand. Obviously, he managed to get a few feet, but then something happened and the whole sand collapsed on him. He got suffocated to death and also had a heart attack from the thing. Yeah. He digged an early grave. Actually, I have no idea how they found the body or how he got that, but oh well.
Road trip. No matter how many people fall victim to agonizing and often fatal bites, people just don't seem to get the message to not mess with snakes. Like the bizarre Indian trend of snapping selfies with cobras. Or this Florida man whose decision to kiss a venomous water moccasin temporarily turned his face into a marshmallow. But even those folks are basically Einstein-level geniuses compared to one man from the Kuala Lumpur district of Malaysia who took a wild python for a motorcycle ride in January 2018. Having passed the 11-foot-long reptile on his return from work, he grabbed a pair of gloves and a sickle from home before returning to catch it. While his motivations for doing so remain unclear, he picked up the snake, holding it by its head to avoid being bitten, and hopped back on his motorbike. Shortly after beginning their road trip, however, the snake began coiling around its chauffeur. Before long, it had constricted enough to pull him off his bike, and despite passersby attempting to pull him free, the python had soon squeezed all of the life out of him. So if you ever take a reptile on a road trip, take it in a nice car. Because if this story is anything to go by, pythons really seem to hate riding motorbikes. Do you know of any local...
That was funny. That was funny. But yeah. So, this Sif was, you know, people like to snap pics with stuff. So this one tried to take a danger. He was coming back from work and saw a 3-foot-long snake python, and he went back before going home. He grabbed something. He grabbed some gloves and something to poke it to get it. He got it by its head, and he poked it by its head so it didn't bite him. And then he hopped back on his motorcycle and went with it. A bit time later, the snake wrapped him and was strangling him so hard he let go and fell. He then again, the others were trying to help him. Other people were trying to help him, but soon enough, he died. The snake squeezed everything out of him, and he died. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and see you all next time. Also, like and subscribe right now, so I could do more videos and watch more. Bye.